Hi everyone, yasas kakalosirtate to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're going to be making the creamiest cheese pie, Greek style of course, with a delicious bechamel sauce, lots of feta cheese, buttery flaky phyllo. It's the perfect holiday appetizer if you're looking for something easy and with lots and lots of flavor. I would definitely go with this one. Let's get started. So we're going to begin by making the bechamel sauce. So you're going to need half a stick or 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. You can use salted butter, but I prefer to control the salt. 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. So it's always an equal amount of flour and butter to make this roux. So it's 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of butter, if you're wondering. And we're just going to cook this down until the butter melts and the flour is nice and toasted. Now I should have melted the butter first and then added the flour, but it's okay, it'll come together. When the flour gets nice and toasted, it smells so nutty and good. Okay, now we're going to add 2 cups of whole milk, and this is cold, just regular cold milk out of the refrigerator. Quickly whisk it up so it stays nice and smooth. And now we're just going to season it with some salt and pepper. Try not to go too heavy on the salt because the feta that's going to go in here is going to be plenty salty. You just need a little bit so that way all of the flavors come together. Some freshly cracked black pepper. And I'm not adding it, but you could add some freshly ground nutmeg or 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon of already ground nutmeg. I'm not the biggest fan of nutmeg, so I'm leaving it out. And now we're just going to cook this, whisking it constantly so nothing sticks and burns on the bottom. And once it thickens, really like once it comes to a boil, it's going to start to thicken up pretty quickly. As soon as it thickens, take it off of the heat. So once the sauce is thick enough to coat the back of a wooden spoon or a spatula, then it is ready. You can take it off of the heat. Now we're going to temper an egg. I just have 1 egg over here that I had set out at room temperature. Lightly beat it and take some of the hot cream to bring the temperature of the egg up. That way when it goes in, it's nice and smooth and it doesn't curdle. Last thing you want in bechamel sauce is scrambled eggs. My mom used to make bechamel sauce for pasticcio, and she would always make extra and put the leftover in a bowl for me and sprinkle some sugar and cinnamon on top, and I swear it was the best pudding ever. This reminds me of that. Now add the egg mixture to the cream, and that's it. Now it's time for the feta cheese. You always want to get feta that's in block form like this. If you buy it crumbled, it won't taste good. It's going to be too salty, and it just takes 2 seconds to crumble it yourself. 12 ounces of feta is what we're going for. That's about 350 grams. Just go ahead and crumble it in. At this point, you can also add some stringy cheese if you wanted to, like a Gruyere cheese, a Casseri cheese. If you want mozzarella, it's not going to add a lot of flavor, but it will add that like stringy, cheesy flavor, not flavor, texture. But I'm going to keep it simple and just make this a feta cheese pie. Lots of flavor in here. If you want to, you could also add some dried thyme, maybe a little pinch of dried oregano. Whatever your favorite herbs are, mint is really nice in this. And just like that, the filling is ready. If you wanted to make this for a bigger batch, a bigger group of people, and maybe make it in a 9 by 13 inch or in a lasagna pan, then you would just double this filling, and you would use a whole pack of phyllo. We're only using half a pack today, which is half a pound. But again, if you're making it for a big group or if you want to have some left over for the freezer, then double this recipe and you will be so happy you did. Now it's time to put the pie together. So I'm making this in a 9-inch round pie pan. I've melted a stick of butter, which is 4 ounces or 113 grams. I just popped it in the microwave in the wrapper because then I like to take the wrapper and just grease the pan. So I already have half a pound of phyllo that's been sitting on my counter. It needs to be at room temperature if you want it to be easy to work with. So just take 1 sheet at a time and just line the bottom of the pan. Save about 3 sheets for the topping. I like for the bottom crust to be a little bit thicker than the top crust. Drizzle some butter in between each layer. I usually work with 1 sheet at a time, but if ever you have 2 sheets stuck together, do not even bother separating them. Just take both sheets and put them in there together. It will not make a difference. And the last sheet doesn't get any butter. We're going to pour the bechamel cheese sauce in here. And then the remaining sheets go on top, 1 at a time with butter drizzled in between each layer. And then go ahead and gather all of the edges and tuck them into the sides of the pan. And take all of the leftover butter and brush it and drizzle it on top. I would focus more on the edges And then you don't have to do this, but I have some black sesame seeds. You could use white sesame seeds. Just sprinkle them on top like that. Before it goes in the oven, just score it and cut it into 8 pieces. Just the top part. It doesn't have to go all the way down to the bottom. This is going to make it much easier to cut later on. If you skip this step, what ends up happening is the phyllo just crumbles and just you're going to have a mess. And I should have done this before I drizzled all of that butter on top. Put it on a baking tray so that way if anything drips, it drips onto the tray and not into your oven. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to bake on the center rack for about 40-45 minutes or until it's beautifully golden all around. Once it comes out, the hardest thing is waiting. You have to wait so that way it can set, maybe about 30 minutes or so, and then you can dig into it. So the tiropita took almost an hour in my oven to bake. Keep an eye on it because oven temperatures do vary. And as soon as it's golden all around, you can take it out and let it sit at room temperature. The longer you let it sit, the better it's going to be because it's going to be easier to serve. You want that bechamel cheese sauce to set. Mine honestly needed at least another 30 minutes longer, but we don't have time for that around here. It's still going to be perfectly delicious. I like to serve this at room temperature. So it's great if you're making this for a party. You can just assemble the whole thing the day before and then bake it the day that you're serving it in the morning or in the afternoon and then just leave it out and serve it at room temperature. You can put it in the oven for a few minutes before your guests arrive to just warm it up, warm it through just a little bit. You can also assemble the whole thing weeks before and freeze it. Just wrap it tightly with plastic wrap so it doesn't absorb any freezer odors, and then cover it with foil and poke some holes in the foil so that way the steam escapes, and then you can bake it about 30-40 minutes covered at 350, uncover it, and then bake it until it's nice and golden and bubbly, and then let it set. Same thing like we did in the original recipe. I hope you guys give this one a try. It is time for the taste test, and the crust should be really crispy. Can you hear that? And the filling should be nice and creamy. This is so comforting. I could eat the whole thing. I like to serve this with some olives on the side. You can even serve this sweet, drizzled with honey, because I love cheese pie with honey. It's something that my mom used to give me when I was little. She used to fry Greek cheese pies with the homemade dough and then drizzle lots of Greek honey on top, and it's just so sweet and so delicious. The sweet and the salty go so well together. I hope you guys give this recipe a try. The exact measurements are on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. Yes, us.